So let's go ahead and get started. Thank you guys again for being here. First of all, our typical legal disclaimer. There's not going to be any legal advice today because we're really talking about culture and how to make your businesses work a little bit better. So I don't think there's a lot of legal issues going on here, but nonetheless, we must put that up there to keep our lawyers happy. Okay, so today we are going to talk about culture and just kind of why it's so important. Going to kind of help you guys define workplace culture. And listen, there's a lot of buzz going on about this. Everybody's hearing it everywhere. So we've tried to put the most effective things into place, and things that we've had experience with ourselves. So I think that's important. We want to build a culture without, we all don't have huge budgets. We're not big, massive companies that can, spend $1,000 a month or $2,000 a month on benefits per employee. And then, how leadership really affects culture. And I know because I'm in that position. So that's been something near and dear to my heart. And then just some practical action steps, and then a couple real life stories that we've come up with. So I think it should be interesting. And again, thank you guys for being here. And, if you have any questions during the process, please put it in the chat or the Q&A, and we'll try to get to any questions that you have at the end. Raise a hand or something if you need me to stop on something and talk more about it. Okay. So introduction. Let me just first say that this is important to me today because, I started Infinium about 11 years ago now, and I had one employee and I didn't have a lot of money. But what I did realize that the gal that I hired, some of you guys have been with me for a long time, Cecilia, she was a single mom and she just really needed to be able to be flexible with her time to be able to take her kids to school and doctor visits, whatever. So I was very sensitive to that. And I can tell you another thing too. So my wife, we've been blessed that my wife's been home with our kids for, the entire time they were at our house. And I was just I saw how much work she put into taking care of the kids. And I realized that, there's working moms, there's single moms, there's dads, there's single dad. Everybody's got a life outside of work. And if their work is just a straight up 8-9 hours a day and they really don't have that flexibility to live their life, then it really does impact them. So I always had that in the back of my mind as I built this company, and now we've got 10 employees and many of them are moms. It's just, I think that it's super important to think about people's lives and what they're going through. And then that can help you as you create a culture around your employees that you have, not what your great idea is, but what you can do to help your employees live their lives. That'll make them want to stay with you a lot longer. So we're going to talk about more about that, but we'll do a little introduction. So why is it important? Why should we be thinking about this, right? Well, we call it compete beyond compensation, right? We all can't just pay our employees, unlimited amounts. We can't compete with some of the bigger firms, and small businesses we just don't have the ability to match what the big companies do. Yet we do need to compete against them. So what is the big edge that we have? And that's our people, right? It's our process. It's what we do in our workplace that makes people want to do business with us. And if you have a people first culture, that is going to bleed out to your clients as well. And it's very, very important to have a team that really, really is focused on that. And then it boosts retention and loyalty. One of the things that we're very sensitive to is that what does it cost for a new employee? What does it cost to hire a new employee? What does it cost to lose a good employee? It's very expensive. You have no idea. Or hiring a bad employee that maybe wasn't a good culture fit. So if you want good employees to stick with you longer, you've got to have a workplace that they really want to come to. Nobody wants to come to work, right? I mean, we all would rather just be home, watching TV or walking our dogs, but we do have to be here to support our families. So we want to make it a good place that hopefully you don't experience that turnover that you've had. And I will say, our business has been here for 10 years. We've got, like I said, 10 employees. I will say 9 of them have been here for over 7 years. One of them has been about 2 years now. So we do have really, really good loyalty. We kind of practice what we preach here, and we've learned some lessons. I've done some things wrong. Even recently, we've had some, and I'll tell you a little bit of story about that as we go on. So obviously, we want to improve productivity. So if a team is really, really collaborating and working together, and they're happy about their workplace, and they really want to be there, and they want to take care of their clients, because we love our clients, we can't exist without them. Then if we can make that communication better, reduce the friction, if we can bring some accountability on everybody's part to each other as a team, as individuals, then we can really, really function a lot more efficient. And then there's a why behind that, right? It's like, why are we doing this? If we don't have a good mission, then things are not going to work as smoothly as we would like. Those some other reasons, stay agile, ready for growth. And we all experienced recently the COVID debacle, and some of you guys have experienced the recession back in 2008. And so there are tough times, and it happens every 4, 5, 6, 7 years. There's tough times, and you need a team that is really, really, focused on building the company and getting, growing it, but also dealing with tough times when they happen. So having a good team that's aligned and focused can really, really help that process. And then your employer brand, right? I want to be a place that people talk good about Infinium, right? And I love to hear our staff say that we love Infinium, and we want to keep helping the company grow, and it helps all of us. But if you have a good culture, that is going to attract good employees, and it's gonna they're going to post stuff on Facebook and Google reviews and whatever. So it's really, really good. Positive energy spreads, probably not as bad, not as quickly as negative energy. So realize that if I've got negative energy or a toxic workplace, that information is going to get out there, and that's not really a good situation. And then finally, compliance. And we've been talking a lot about this lately in some of our blogs, but we all need to comply. We're in California. It's very difficult to deal with all the different laws that we have to, whether it's meal breaks or overtime and final paychecks, all that stuff. So if we can create a sense of accountability, transparency, fairness, respect, then it's going to be less likely that an employee is going to take you to the bank, right, to try to sue you over something. So when you're really sensitive to that and sensitive to your team, then you can hopefully prevent any big compliance issues going on. So how's that going to affect you? Well, again, we'll just kind of summarize here what we just talked about. We're going to improve employer retention. We're proof of it. Like I said, people have been here for 7, 8, 10. Anna has been here, my HR, for 11 years. Better productivity and engagement, right? People are just more positive about communication and engagement and working with each other as a team. Then easier to recruit, right? If I've got a good workplace, people want to work here, then I'm going to recruit better, and I maybe not have to recruit as much. If I'm not losing the employees as fast as I normally would, then I'm going to have to recruit less. Fewer HR issues, as we said, compliance and just friction and negativity. Improve customer experience, right? We are nothing without our clients. So if our clients aren't happy, if our employees aren't happy, our clients aren't going to be happy. So focus on employee happiness and contentment first, and that will flow down to your clients. And the resilience in tough times, as we mentioned, getting through those things. Sorry, my ring keeps hitting my desk. So how do we define this, right? What does it look like to do this process? So we just kind of went through this, and I'll tell you just a little quick story. Last year was a rough year. Just our staffing company had some issues, and I think me as a leader got a little bit panicky and desperate, and I was doing a lot of things and making a lot of decisions that sort of put the company second, or the employees second, or even third. And I was really focused on growth and fixing some problems, and I really wasn't thinking about the staff. And let me tell you, they noticed. And there was some tension here. There was you can cut it with a butter knife after probably, many months of dealing with that. So we had to sit down and really went through and did some things. And I'll tell you more about that as we go. But we had to kind of, I had to take note of what I was doing as a leader and how I was affecting the team. And I was creating that difficult workplace. So how do we define this? Is there some steps that we've gone through? Is first of all, why, right? Why am I here? Your company is it's for you to make a living as a business owner. It's for your employees, if your managers here today. Obviously, we're all here to make a living and support our families. But if it's just about, and I've said this for many years, as a business owner, if there's any of you on here, or if any of you know anybody like this, if it's all about your next Mercedes or your motorhome or your vacations, then that's not a good why, right? That's not going to, employees are going to notice that it is about you trying to make money. They're going to feel that, right? So you got to really look at what are we doing beyond profit and being able to support our families? Why are we doing this? Do we really care about what we do? Do we care about our product or our service? What do we value? Like here, I value flexibility and people more than anything. And at times I've probably not done that as well as I could, but I've learned, and I think that's the most valuable thing. Without that, there's no company, there's no business, there's no product, right? So I got to understand that. And then I think the biggest thing is that you've got to talk to your team, right? It's going to be different for everybody. Every business is different. Every situation is different. But if you don't understand what's important to your employees first, then you're never going to be able to build anything. So you can do this by short team discussions. Talk about what's important. Just let it be open-ended, right? Ask, what do we love about working here? What do we hate about working here, right? I know in our place, we hate sometimes, clients that get frustrated with things and they don't really understand that we're trying to help them. We get a little frustrated with that, right? So look for patterns, try to figure out what's being said, what's not being said, dig deeper. You really got to try to pull that out of your employees. You can do it through anonymous surveys like we've done recently, using Google Forms or anything like that. We'll talk more about that as we go. But that's the first thing, is like, what's our culture need to look like based on what our employees want, and why are we even here in the first place? And then, we got to talk about behaviors, right? Behaviors are in everything. They're in the way we talk, the way we show up on time, the way we treat our clients, the way we treat our employees, the way our process works. And I've seen a lot of companies, and being in the HR side, where you get employees that are they silo themselves. They don't really want to be a part of the team. They don't want to be collaborative. And there are a lot of reasons behind that. And maybe them personally, but it also may be the environment that is in the workplace, right? Are you making, as a manager or an owner, are you making all the decisions in the company and they're flowing downhill to the bottom, and there's really no concern for what's actually happening on the operational floor? I know that because I'm the main salesperson here. So if I bring a company and I've overpromised and I've underdelivered, and my employees now have to kind of, untangle my mess that I've created, then that's really not really thinking about them. So that's the behavior, and it's got to start at the top, right? And then are your people taking initiative? Are they waiting for direction? Are they being given that ability to think for themselves and to solve their own problems and fix situations? Or are you micromanaging everything that they do? That's very important to think about. And then, what are your core values, right? We're not just going to have a couple little, values up on a poster when you walk in. It's like, what are your values, and are you really living them? So everything, if you guys have ever heard of the Entrepreneurial Operating System, EOS for short, it really starts with why and your values, right? So if you haven't created really, really strong, meaningful, practical, real values, then that's probably a good place to start. So once you can start that, then everything should flow from that point, right? So example, like if you say, well, we respect our, clients, I respect my employees, but then I keep on dumping bad clients or bad situation on them, then that really doesn't look, like respect. I'm not, right? So it should really flow through our communication, our meetings, our feedback. Everything should flow from those values. And then, hiring operations, it really does. It starts when you hire somebody, walk in the door, right? You've heard that, hiring for culture fit now is way more important, or as at least it's important as a skill set. And I think that's really important. If you bring somebody in that really doesn't have your values and can't understand what you're all about, or they've got just completely different, they want to do things all on their own and not as a team, then that's going to probably end up in a bad situation, and you're going to end up terminating that employee and starting over. So, how you handle clients, problems, challenges, how the team, works together. Like my team, I don't really worry about their time off, when they take time off, if they have to go to a doctor's. I don't even think about that. I see the little requests come by and I don't worry about it because they all work together as a team to make sure that they've got everything covered. So if somebody's going to take 2 weeks off in August, they've already got it approved by their team. They don't have to approve that through me. I want them to take that time off. I want them to have that flexibility. So I think it's really important that those values and all work from the minute you hire somebody through your operations every day. And then you've always got to kind of revisit it. And I think ours had kind of gotten sideways, and I'll admit that. And it was really good to go back through it. And I think there's been a big difference already in the way things are flowing here. So make sure you just every 6-12 months, have a little team meeting about it, ask people how things are going. I think it's important. Is it working? What do we need to change? What can we add to it? Really, really important to keep that flowing. So just a little quote, thriving workplace doesn't happen by chance. It's built deliberately, step by step. And, all the things that we're going to talk about today real quick is that you're not going to be able to put everything in place. You're not going to magically flip a switch and we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and hit it all, in the next 6 months or 3 months. You could start small and just make intentional changes and then adjust as you go. That's really, really important. Excuse me. All right, so how do we do this without, going over budget, right? So workplace flexibility, what does that look like? Well, you can do some realistic things like, alternative work week schedules, 410s, 980s. Those are official things that you need to put into place. We can help you with that. We're working on ours here. We're probably going to go to a 980 at some point. We're hoping in 2025. But right now they get good vacation and they're able to take time off. So it's not a huge issue, but that's something you can think about that really doesn't cost very much because you're still going to get the same productivity, maybe even more, because now employees get 3-day weekends and they can, they have a little bit more focus at work. And then, embrace remote and hybrid. We have a hybrid remote working situation here. Almost all the employees, and there's only a few that are here all the time, including me. They're home 2 days a week or 3 days a week, and they alternate so that there's always team coverage here. We have one that is full-time remote out of Texas. We've got another one that's, here 3 days a week, always home Monday, Tuesday, and another one that's off on Thursdays to watch your grandchild. So everybody here has some sort of flexibility in their work environment. Now that can't be done for a lot of companies. If you're in construction, manufacturing, you got to have people there. I get that. So this doesn't always work, but it's an option to think about. And then consider part-time employees. We do have one part-time employee. She's fabulous. She's a working mom. She works from home 100% of the time. She pops in here maybe once every couple of weeks. She's fabulous, and we would be really shorthanded without her. So sometimes you can really kind of fill gaps using folks that really can't work a full-time job or don't want to. So try to that could ease the workload for your staff while keeping your budget down because you've only got a part-time employee, and they're still happy because they're supporting their family. And then, staggered start times. We don't really do too much of that here, but you can certainly offer some folks. Actually, we do. Some employees will get here at 8, some get here at 9. Forgive me, I forgot. Some work from home about an hour a day, or some work so much at home that it's not really an issue of their salary. But you can kind of stagger things a little bit. If some have to take their kids to school, let them take their kids to school, right? Focus on the work that needs to get done, not so much the way it's getting done. And we'll mention that a little bit later. And then, how do you do this, right? So we use Slack here, very important. We use Zoom for our staff meetings for all the folks that happen to be home on our staff meeting day, which is every other Thursday. But they're on Slack all day long. Slack I think it's free, and it's constant communication, upload files, whatever you need to do, forward emails, whatever you can do. We're also bringing in HubSpot so that we can all work off of the same information, the same CRM, that all our clients will be in one place. But there's Monday, which is more of a project-based app. So, you can use technology to kind of help make things a little bit easier. So don't be scared that, oh my God, my employees are going to be home and nobody's talking to them. Well, if we've done some of the other things by creating that team environment and that accountability, then somebody from home, nobody's even going to notice that they're home because they're still in full communication. So let technology be your friend there. Don't micromanage. I think when we start micromanaging methods and all the little things that get done, then employees they're not going to be as free to do what they know needs to be done. They're going to kind of stick with whatever you say. So focus on the outcome. That's what I think. Listen, the job's getting done. I'm not hearing complaints from clients. I'm hearing praise from clients. So I know my employees are getting the job done, and I don't have to really do that as long as I've defined what's expected, what deadlines there are, what our basic processes are here. Then you know what? Give the employees the autonomy to do the job and trust them. It's one of the biggest things I can say to everybody out here is that when you start setting these things in place, and again, you can't just throw it all out there. You can trust your employees to do the job, and they will do it. When they feel trusted and they trust you, they're going to do the right job. And then measure what works. We talked about that, being able to do the kind of look at these things every 6 months or so, but ask them how it's working. What can we do better? We've done that here recently as we started talking about a 480 work week. 480 work week, by the way, is where they work. I think it's like 9 hours a day for 4 days a week, and then a half day or an 8 hour day the next day, and then the next week they get 1 day off. And there's something like that. I don't even know how it works, but I know that they get one Friday off every 2 weeks, which is really, really cool. So just ask how that's working and try to make it better, improve as you go. There's no hard and fast rules to this. Again, if you let your team decide how to build that. And then communication is huge. I mentioned Slack, but transparency and communication's got to start at the top. And I know that with me, sometimes I am not very good at this. I had to be kind of dragged kicking and screaming into being a better leader. I was very, very DIY is my thing, right? I want to just do it myself, and nobody. I don't need anybody. But when you have that kind of an attitude from the top, it really, really flows downhill. So the opposite of that is being transparent, talking about where the company's at, so that employees can really understand the decisions that are being made, why they're being made. If I keep a client on that is way beyond, we should probably let the client go because they're too much trouble or whatever it is, which is rare. Because we love you guys out there. But if I've done that, there's always a why behind it, right? And I make sure that they understand that, so that when I ask them to do something that maybe they're not happy about, they understand why. And then when I do back them up and I do honor them, they feel trusted and respected. So that's important. But then encourage bottom up, right? You don't have all the ideas as a leader or a manager or an HR person. You don't, right? I don't have all the best ideas. I've had so many great ideas and so many solutions to challenges come from the bottom up. It just makes me feel good that I'm allowing people's brain power to be combined and to be, allowed to flourish. I think it's very, very important to do that. But let them help you build your company. Your employees build your company. They know a lot more than you think they do. And then how do we empower our teams? We've got to set objectives, not instructions. Like our objective here is to, answer the phone within an hour or return a phone call within an hour, get back to emails within a couple hours, to make sure that our customers have ease of doing business. They're not, things aren't too complicated for them with the use of technology. That's all I need to do. Let your employees figure out how that's going to get done, right? They can do that, and then trust them to do it. That's super, super important. And then again, let them test their own ideas. If somebody's got a great idea, let the team work on it. Let them figure it out. Let them play with it. We've had some like with technology, our iSolved platform. Before I've kind of made the rule now after some mistakes, like we don't offer a new solution unless we've really practiced it and played with it and tested it ourselves. So I let the team figure that out. And if something's not working, we don't offer it, right? So that's got to be the team's got to figure that out, not me. And so another thing, it's part of this is, recognizing and rewarding employees. Make gratitude part of your culture, build thank you time, we have we have issues processing in our meetings, and we talk about, and this is something I just recently started. We have wins and losses, right? What were some really good wins that we had this week? What were some losses? Are they big? Are they small? Are they team or individual? But don't hesitate to tell your employees what a great job they're doing, and how it impacts the company, right? It's not just about, hey, great job. It also it comes out with, like, this is how you affected our company, right? I know one of my gals is working with me on our taxes and doing some things, and it's allowed us to earn extra money every month. So I make sure she knows, hey, your efforts have led to X amount of revenue every month, and this is fabulous. So really important to say it out loud. Don't be afraid to praise people in meetings publicly. I think some people could say, well, she's the favorite or he's the favorite. Well, you know what? Maybe that's the one that's doing the job. So maybe that helps lift everybody else, as long as you do it respectfully and you don't make other people feel like they're not doing the job, but try to spread that as evenly as possible if you can. And then peer to peer, let your coworkers, praise each other, encourage that. They should be, even in whether it's in meetings or they just do it privately, but everybody should be building each other up. And if your workplace is the opposite, right, where there's tearing down or there's complaining or there's just a toxicity going on, then that's a problem you need to fix right away. I've seen it where employees complain, employees, maybe they're jealous of somebody. Got to find those things out, because those kinds of situations, we could think that, well, it's just people and it's just John or it's just Susie. That's the way they are. No, something's wrong, right? We've got to dig in and find out why there isn't a positive workplace culture when it comes to communication and peer-to-peer recognition. And if there is an issue, find ways to solve those issues, like between teams or groups or individuals, whatever. Find a way to deal with that positively, but be very in tune as a manager and an owner. You got to be in tune with what's going on. We've had conflict going on in our business, but we've dealt with it very quickly and without pointing fingers and without, causing more damage. And then, use little small perks, bonus cards, gift cards, little $25 here and there, a little email, a note, you can do lots of things. Give them some flexibility, let them, maybe leave earlier. Little things. These are, again, we're talking about ways that we can do this without a big budget hit, right? So if I've got an employee who did a great job, I can say, listen, you get 2 hours off today, or you guys get to choose what we're having for lunch this week. We're going to have a luncheon. Power of food is huge. We used to do, we haven't done it for a while. We got to get back into it, but we would do birthday lunches all the time. And then we got so many birthdays now, so we just do basically a birthday lunch every month. But it was nice. Got the whole team together. If you're not centering your employees around food, find a way to do it. This morning, I know all our staff is here today, so I reached out to Taylor, who picks up coffee a lot of times when he comes in. And I said, hey, coffee's on me today. And he stopped at the local coffee place in Taza and got some coffee. So little things like that, just little quick thank yous, very important to do that. And then here's some low cost benefits that you can think about. And one of our upcoming webinars is going to be on this, but 401k, IRA, retirement plans. As you know, Cal Savers is any employee now, any employer of 5 employees or more must have a retirement plan in place. There's still some companies that have not complied with that, and there's a lot of them that are using Cal Savers. Cal Savers is a very one-dimensional, limited plan. It's good if your employees are not really into investing. A lot of folks have that situation, but if you can really think about putting a more flexible IRA, it's called a paycheck deduction IRA, where you can actually contribute, where the owners can contribute, or putting a 401k if you've got enough employees that would want to do that. But very low cost. I mean, our 401k costs, I don't know, I think I probably spend a couple $1,000 a month between fees and match and so forth. So yeah, it's not super cheap, but what's the cost of losing employees, right? And then, dental vision life, if you don't have medical, you can get some great dental plans, great vision plans that you can set up and, give them $100 a month. There's also reimbursements that you can set up. If you don't have medical, you can use what's called a QSERA plan. That's a QS, it's qualified single employer reimbursement plan, something like that. So that'll help you. You can actually give employees a reimbursable amount, tax-free, $100, $200 a month, and they can go ahead and purchase their own medical. You can talk to us about that. We can help you put that plan in place. So that's kind of cool. And then there's employee assistance plans. There's legal shield plans. Supplemental insurance, I say think the duck, right? Aflac or Colonial Life. There's some other products out there. Pet insurance is kind of cool. I think I do have pet insurance for myself, not the company, but it's like $30 a month. Really, really inexpensive. There's floating holidays. We do have floating holidays. Very important. Like Easter was this last weekend, so we were off at noon. Some employers are off the whole day. Some of our clients were. But then we'll kind of just move that around. Like next Christmas comes up and we have an opportunity to take an extra day off, right? Maybe it's New Year's Eve, maybe it's the day after Christmas. We'll just make that a new holiday. We'll talk about it 30 days in advance, let the employees know so they can plan, or we'll just say, hey, listen, this is a great opportunity to take some time off. So think about floating holidays, gym memberships, some cool stuff you can put in place that don't cost very much, and it encourages wellness amongst your employees. And some other things, we do over the last year. The reason why we kind of stopped doing the lunches, we actually give our employees a birthday off, right? So they get that one extra day. They don't have to take vacation hours or sick hours. They can either leave early or they can take that whole day off. Again, I mentioned extended holidays. One day off is not going to destroy your company. It's not going to cost you too much. Definitely, if you have a kitchen break room, make sure that there's healthy snacks, beverages. We just bought a new beverage refrigerator that we're going to stock with, bubbly water and protein drinks and energy drinks and things like that, whatever the employees want, non-alcoholic from the HR guy. But that's kind of a cool thing. They can grab a drink once in a while. Mobile car washes, have them come in once a month, do everybody's car, or once every quarter, maybe, if it's because it gets very expensive. Again, work from home days. If you don't have a full remote, allow employees to work from home. If they've got maybe a sick child or relative, just say, listen, work from home, take care of your family. We got you covered here. Team events offsite. We have not done that, but I really, actually, did we? No, we have not. But yeah, we've done some Christmas events and wineries and so forth. But try to do some events offsite. You can do escape rooms or restaurants, things like that. But definitely get offsite once in a while with your employees. Bring their families in. That's kind of fun. Health and wellness days, right? So maybe once a month you have a chiropractor come in and do a demonstration or offer to help people. Massages. You can bring in yoga instructors to come in and teach people stretches and things like that. So once a month. May cost you $150 to have that person there, or whatever it is, would be really interesting. And then educational personal growth. You can pay for education. You can offer that. Make sure that your employees know where they can go in the company. If the company's growing and you're moving forward, why not incentivize them with more education, helping pay for that? Like I've offered, Anna's getting her HR certification and, pay for that. Just make sure that they know that they've got an opportunity to grow with your company. That way they don't go looking for someplace else to grow. All right, excuse me. Okay, so let's talk about leadership. And, I take this is personal. So it's very important to set the tone from the top down, right? So if you're a manager and you've got a boss who is not necessarily on board with all this, have a talk with them. Make sure they understand. If you're a business owner here, make sure you understand that it starts with you, right? If you are not walking the talk, right? People follow examples more than words, right? Action, not just words. If you demonstrate transparency, respect, and accountability, that is going to spread downhill. If you do the opposite, that's also going to flow downhill, right? So your employees will notice. And then if you're, kind of subsequent to that, If you're reactive and defensive and dismissive, and like something goes wrong and people are pointing at you because you made a bad decision, if you're defensive about it, then that's really going to look bad, right? But being inconsistent, yeah, this is our policy, but I bounce around that policy all the time. That's going to build a lot of mistrust and disengagement. They're not going to want to trust you going forward. I know, because I've done this myself. So this is not being. I just get this off the internet somewhere. I've experienced it, and like I said, they can feel if you're micromanaging, you're controlling things, and you're not being that person. Then they're going to feel it, and it's got to be the core business priority. You're right. It's not just some initiative that you put on the wall. You got to own it. You got to work it, and it's a process. It's got to be intentional and deliberate. So how do we model that? So the best way is live it, right? You got to believe it. If you don't believe what you're doing, and then you're not going to live it, and it's not going to flow downhill. So live that culture in everything that you do, right? Show up consistency, fairness, humility, follow through, always, all those little things that we do as leaders that sometimes maybe we forget. Right. So I'm the boss. I got an important job to do. I'm not going to be bothered with little details like follow through. No, that's extremely important. I've always believed, maybe not acted always this way, but I believe in servant leadership, right? Servant leadership is, are you willing to wash the feet of your employees, right? To demonstrate that amount of humility and servitude to them, to show them that you are helping them grow the company. You're not just growing it and they're sort of trailing behind you and following you. So do what you say you're going to do, right? If you say it, do it. Don't forget about it. Under promise and over deliver, not just with your clients, but with your employees as well. And when we own our mistakes and we act with integrity, then we give our employees that same room to be able to do that themselves. And then making clear expectations and communicating clearly, right? If I communicate something to my employees, here's a policy, make sure you get that done. They don't understand it, right? If they have to try to interpret it, or they got to ask their coworkers, what is he talking about? And you didn't communicate that really well. So make sure you really communications, you walk the walk and not just talk. And then your managers, right? If you're an owner here, or if you're a manager, then anybody that you've got down below you, they are your front line, right? So your employees may see them a lot more than they see you as an owner, or you may have managers underneath you that see you, or leaders, supervisors, whatever. But everybody has to have buy-in all the way down the line, or the culture dies, right? Somewhere there's a weak link in the chain. Your culture is going to die. It's not going to process down to the employees where you need me. Some people have large companies with hundreds of employees. It's a lot more difficult. But if you make sure that all the links in the chain are all working at the same strength and with the same focus, then that will flow downhill. So ensure they got they're equipped to deal with, conflict resolution, right? So if I've got an employee or a supervisor that's hot-headed and somebody gets in a conflict, some of my reports, and I jump in and I get hot-headed too, then I've really failed, right? And I've just thrown fuel in the fire. So make sure they have an understanding, at least a basic understanding of emotional intelligence, and kind of be able to kind of read the room, right? Are they approachable? Do they listen? Do they give feedback? Well, you should be able to see that, and you should be fostering that and building that from the top down, and they should be able to follow your example. Do your employees feel safe and valued? Ask them, right? If maybe you think a manager is not doing their job, then ask them, are you getting what you need from your manager? How do you feel? Are they doing the job? Sometimes you've got to do that and make sure that everybody's on the same page. Is there a plan for regular check-ins, feedback sessions, one-to-ones? Do they have an open door policy? Do they know that if I go to this person that I'm going to get it's going to be responded to? Do they know? Do the employees feel like that's going to happen, right? So that's important too. And like I said before, strong cultures are intentional. They don't happen by accident. You've got to build this culture, and more so today, because I'll tell you, it's the buzz out there, right? It's people are reading it on the internet, they're seeing it on Instagram, and and people are definitely more sensitive. I think COVID really kicked that into high gear. People got to go work at home, or they got to be home for a couple of weeks, and now it's like, oh my gosh, my workplace is terrible. I'd rather be home. So you really got to think about that. That this is just the way we need to go as businesses these days. It's not, we can't do things the old way, and to be deliberate about that. And then, recognizing employees when they do promote your values and live your values, then make sure you celebrate that and reinforce that culture. Leadership's got to do it. It's not just going to run, you can't just leave it. It's like our kids. We can't just leave them to do what they've got to do. We've got to help them and nurture them and guide them as they go. And just remember, everything you do, every policy, process, communication, it's either going to help or it's going to hurt your culture, right? So there's just no neutral ground. You can't just flow through this and go, well, my employees know what to do, so I think they should be okay. Now, you really got to kind of make sure that this process is real, and you can feel it, you can look at it, you can measure it, and that everything you do is either going to help or hurt it. All right, so let's talk about a couple action steps. And this won't be too difficult. We're almost at the end here. I'm going to try to be out as quick as I can for you guys. And I will send everybody a copy of this, and you'll get a recording of the webinar as well. So first of all, again, back to what we said before, identify your values. What do you stand for? What is your company all about, right? Not so much on the customer side, like we want to make sure we're the best gardener in town, whatever. Define what it means to your employees too, because I said, it starts with the employees. If your culture is strong and your core values are strong with your employees, that's going to flow down to your clients. So you got to, a lot of us get that backwards, right? So let's identify what that is. You can do that through talking with them. Start the conversation, right? Kick things off. Ask the team, what is our culture? What do you think our culture is? You could send them an anonymous form. You can do it on Google. You can use Jot forms, which is what I use. But send those anonymous surveys out and ask what they mean. And I'm going to send you guys an example of what we sent to our team. I'm going to go ahead and include that with this information. Okay. I'm kind of ahead of myself here because I've just been doing this stuff. But yeah, I don't know who said what, but it was important to me to learn what was said and what they felt about the company. And I learned some good things. So really good to do that. You can even assign a culture team, or, if you're big enough, you can do that. Maybe you've got somebody from each department or a group of employees that you feel would be good to do that. But make sure it's not just managers. Make sure some of the employees at the tail end of the company are able to give some input and some feedback, but give them ownership of what your culture is going to look like. But this is where it starts, right? What goes on beyond this, what we've been talking about, that's going to be different for every company. So we're not going to try to define every step over the next year that you're going to have to go through. But this is where it starts. Very, very important. Like I said, I'll send out this culture survey that we did, and you can duplicate it in Google Forms, and I'll even send you a link to Jotform. I love Jotform. We use it a ton. It's not very expensive. Okay. So here's some real life success stories. These are, I'm not going to name any companies, but here's a local marketing agency where work-life balance was an issue, right? So they were struggling with just being able to live their life, as we discussed, taking parents, to doctor's appointments or school drop-offs for kids. So what they did is they put flexible work schedules, right? Allowing employees to work anytime between 7:30, start anytime between 7:30 and 10, as long as they work their full hours. That might be difficult for some companies, as I've said, but that's just one example of something that you can do. So what happened? Well, they felt trusted. They knew that, hey, I'm just here. I got to get the job done now. I feel obligated to my team. I feel obligated to the company to get my job done, even though I'm here at 7:00 at night. Nobody else is here. There's only 2 other people here. But they were more effective, that their problems were resolved at home, and now they can work. And so the takeaway is that, even if you can't offer full remote, maybe even small flexible, maybe it's a half an hour, right? That's not going to affect a whole bunch unless you're manufacturing construction where they got to be on a job. But that will help them to live their lives. I think it's super, super important. So another little 50-employee company. So basically they did like a DEY employee perks, right? So at limited budget, they gave them $25 a month. You guys figure out what you want to do with it, right? Maybe it was lunches, maybe it's little stipends, maybe it's gym memberships, whatever they could do. They were able to use that $25. You maybe will be able to afford more. Maybe that $100 a month or $50 a month goes towards medical reimbursement, or maybe you set up a flexible savings plan or an HRA plan where they can apply that towards their medical expenses. So another little fun thing to do. So again, they felt ownership over their perks. They were able to take some of that company money and they engaged and they built some team building activities and, kind of had some fun that way. So again, small budget for employee perks can go a lot further when they decide how they're going to use it rather than just giving them $25. Although I would say a lot of employees wouldn't mind having $25 in their pocket either at times. So you can do a lot. Be creative as possible. Another one, local coffee shop, just a feedback culture. Employees didn't feel like they were being heard. And we had that issue here. And that was brought to my attention. And so the owners implemented one-on-one check-ins. And the employees kind of met with the manager 15 minutes, discuss how things are going, how they're feeling, what do they need help with, where are they going, what the company could do better. Now, I could tell you one thing, that might be tough sometimes because I know when I did it, I was expecting to hear some pretty rough things, and I did in some cases. But that will get better if you listen and you apply what you've heard and try to make things better for that employee, particularly individually, but also as a company. Then those check-ins are going to be a lot more fun, right? But first off, you haven't done it, you've never done it, then it might be a little bit tough. I'm just warning you. And then impact the employees felt valued, listened to, right? Again, top down doesn't always work. Bottom up really, really helps. They reduce their turnover. Employees stayed longer. And listen, we have a great turnover report in iSolve if you use our payroll. And if you need help, ask your rep where it's at. But it's really, really cool. You can see your own turnover, what percentage it is. Very, very interesting statistic. And then that becomes a metric that if you start putting these things in place and you say, hey, I'm at 60% turnover when we started, and in 6 months or a year, you're now at 30% turnover, that's huge, right? So that's something that you can measure, and that will directly impact your business, your bottom line, and your customers as well. So very important. So takeaway is that, one-on-one meetings, even 15 minutes a month, can show employees that you really care about them. I think that's super important. So we'll finalize this last statement. Culture doesn't need to be fancy. It just has to be real. The more clear and the more intentional you are about it, defining it, the easier it's going to become to attract people, retain people that really believe in what you're doing as a company. And to me, the sky's the limit at that point. I had an employee, I think she's on, I think Anna's on, but we were talking to a very challenging client yesterday, or potential client. And she goes, I don't know, this one might be a little bit too big for us, might be beyond us. And I sent her a text back. I said, you know what? Sometimes you got to shoot for the moon, right? So if you are confident in your team, I'm extremely confident we can do it, then you're not going to be able to shoot for the moon, right? But when you have a good team and you've built that culture and that teamwork, then you are going to be able to shoot for the moon and take your company anywhere you need to go. So I hope that was inspiring. I got probably a lot of clients on the line today, but if you're not, just know that we do more than just talk about culture. We do payroll, HR, we do employee, we do recruiting, outsourced recruiting, staffing. We have a staffing division here as well, but we can help you with our automation, HR, best practices, employee relations, anything. Please reach out to us so we can be of any help. So like I said, we'll be sending out copy of this recording. I'll send you guys a copy of the slides, copy of that culture or the survey that we sent out as well. I'll do it like in a PDF or something. And then next month, I'm not sure exactly what our topic is going to be for our webinar, but I will get that out to you guys as soon as possible. So that's it. Got done in 50 minutes today. So thank you guys so much for being here. Appreciate it. Always makes me feel good when we get folks on it. We do have a question, by the way. I'm so sorry. Got a couple questions. So forgive me. I was rushing out of the room to go to my coffee. Got one. Thank you. Great presentation. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate that. So no questions, but thank you guys for being here. I hope you have a fantastic day and the rest of your week. Okay. Bye-bye.